Raw crew, welcome back to the It's Not Fake Fancast. We call ourselves a fan cast, not a podcast, because podcasts are for journalists. We're not journalists, we're not insiders, we're not bookers, we're not producers, we're not wrestlers, we're not agents. We don't own shit. We don't know any wrestlers, we don't care to know any wrestlers. But what we have done is spend our time, effort, and money on something that we all love, which is professional wrestling. And now we're spending our time with you, the fans, because we are fans. Malachi B. Jones, what's going on, man? We got a special show for us today. What's going on?
Yeah, I can't wait to do this special show. I'm excited about what we're going to be talking about today.
And I'm kicking to my tag team partner, Reg, aka Antonio Marks, the Marks man. We call him a Marks man because a grown man, John Cena fan. What's up, brother?
What's up, everybody? Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoy the show.
And I am your host, Ahmad the Dark Show. And if you don't like my nickname, I will pull your eyelashes out with vice grips. Malachi B. Jones, what we got on the deck tonight?
What we got on the deck first, we're going to be talking about Dark Side of the Ring, the Brian Pillman episode. Let's talk about it.
So this is season 3, episode 1 of a great series that we've all been watching for the last couple of years. I think we've seen some great episodes like the Montreal Screwjob. We've seen, obviously, the Jimmy Snuka episode, which was, I thought, the craziest one ever. And we had a couple of others. And now we got one I really, really, really enjoyed this one, man. It's Brian Pillman episode. Reggie, what'd you think about it?
The Brian Pillman episode was a little very deep. Very deep, I'll tell you that much. But it was inspiring at the beginning of it, seeing how he just wasn't willing to give in to everything. He wasn't the biggest dude in there. He just had to let his personality shine. He had to learn that the hard way. That goes a lot in the wrestling. If you're not the biggest dude, something else has got to be big about you. And the whole journey with Steve Austin through the Hollywood Blondes and all that was good. Always enjoyed. Yeah, man, I'm not going to jump to the whole thing yet. So, Jim.
This is one of my favorite episodes of the whole series. I've been watching, season 1, season 2. It's one of my favorite ones that have come on TV. It showed a lot of stuff behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, kind of messed with you. Like, there were certain parts, I don't want to get into it yet. Certain parts of the episode where I was watching, I was like, wait, what? That happened? I had no idea. And it really brought us in as fans where, I think one thing we need to talk about with everything going on is some things we don't even know about in the wrestling world that we didn't know about as kids. We had no idea, even as teenagers, didn't know that, there are issues and there's a dark side of everything going on.
Well, one thing I'll say is, and I'll get this started. I am old enough to remember Brian Pillman actually debuted in NWA/WCW. And I remember, if I'm not mistaken, he is the first wrestler I ever seen do a springboard off the top rope clothesline, which was his finisher for a long time when he was flying Brian Pillman, when he wore the Cincinnati Bengals colors, pretty much a logo, because he was the offensive lineman for them. A lot of people don't know that. Dude must have been the smallest offensive lineman ever, but he had the heart of a lion. And we can actually segue right into that. When he was a child, this is something I did know, though. He had, 26 surgeries or something like that on his throat?
It was quite close to 31. But,
yeah, something crazy like that. So,
crazy number.
He already had it rough and everything was an uphill climb. So to see that he was an offensive lineman and probably the smallest offensive lineman on his team, and then hear about his work ethic and his motor, I think him going through all them surgeries really put something in him, put a drive in him that, and we about to get into it, would later on definitely translate over to wrestling. I mean, let's talk about Flying Brian Pillman, right? Flying Brian Pillman, at least from what I remember, was one of the first American high flyers that really came with different stuff, came with innovative stuff. There was Jumping Jim Bronzell and Leaping Manny Poffo, and even to an extent, you had Steamboat and Macho Man and stuff. But Brian Pillman brought a different type of athleticism because he brought acrobatics and athleticism. And he should get a lot of credit because especially early in his career, he sold a lot. And he got his ass beat. And he had to earn his spots. You know what I mean? and I'll touch on this and I'll let you guys take over real quick. I remember the War Games where he was the one that got defeated. Sid Vicious power bombing him, hitting his head on top of the cage because back then War Games had a roof. Hitting his head on top of the cage, slamming him back down. Picked him back up, hit his head on top of the cage, slamming him back down. But just even though he took the pin, just the fact that they had him a part of that team in the main event just goes to show you how hard that dude was working.
And he was taking a lot more of the work too, because like he was still not to say green there, but you got to pay your dues. You got to pay your dues. That's just how it comes when it comes to the business. He was taking those bumps though. He was taking everything, and then he just kept shining and shining. And I like how they pointed out in the episode how the management really came into play, because whoever was in charge at the time appreciated him, but then someone else took over and said, "Why is this guy here?" You know. And in the meantime, he's doing what he should be doing. He's like living the life of a professional wrestler. You know, he's just in and out of shows. We obviously touched on how many women and mistresses he had. Definitely enjoying the fun part of celebrityhood, if you want to call it like that. But the management was definitely like the whole thing. They just kept putting him back and back, and I like the point where he just said, "You know, fuck it, I'm gonna do my own thing." He got a lot of coaching. Said like, "What makes you different from anybody else?" And he found that. He shined with it. He took it everywhere and like changed the whole like spectrum on that point. I don't want to get too deep into it, so I hand off to Jim.
Well, we're talking about it, bro. So get deep into it. I mean, we're recapping the episode. Everybody's
Right?
seen it. This is not no spoiler alert shit. Talk about what the fuck we talking about the episode, nigga.
Yeah, but where you said he was taking those bumps, man. Like I also remember when he came up against Steve Austin, and Steve Austin put it straight, like, "Yo, I beat the shit out of him," and because I had to give him these stiffs, like, but you know, sort of like a champion did what he had to do, and the mouth he had on him was legendary because he actually started throwing out he broke the wall on the whole game, especially what was it Bruce?
Yeah, now
Bruce
you're
Pritchard?
jumping ahead. I think now you're jumping ahead a little bit. I mean, because you kind of skipped over the whole Hollywood Blonde situation. And what I wanted to say toward that is it kind of reminded me of the stuff you hear about Macho Man Randy Savage, how the, the attention to detail is so precise that people just go along with it. You know what I'm saying? Like Stone Cold was saying, he picked out what they was going to wear. He picked out the gimmick, even the name. Um, but he was so focused on every little detail, kind of like Macho Man, that people just went along with it because every idea was good. You know what I'm saying, Chen?
Yeah, looking at Flying Brian, everything. I'm going to talk about a lot of them real quick here. He's one of the back then. Everybody had to have the crazy gimmick. Nature Boy, Ric Flair, Total Package, Lex Luger. This guy came in Flying Brian, and after the event, you would remember him out of everybody because he was jumping off the rope. People didn't really do that a lot back then in NWA as much as they would. He did it a lot, and that voice. Once you heard that voice, you knew that was Flying Brian, and I think he's somebody that you guys said he got, he paid his dues and everything. He's the ultimate worker. He came in from the NFL, but he wasn't an NFL wrestler, if you know what I mean. A lot of guys doing tackles and stuff like that. He was doing more athletic things, showing like, hey, I can be a star on this. Once they gave him a shot with the Blondes, it's just like anybody. When you give someone a gimmick that is close to them or something that they enjoy, he looked at him with probably his homie Steve Austin and said, we're going to put you guys together. What do you think? He loved it so much and made the characters, made everything so precise and perfect that they loved it, that, it was close to them. It was something they enjoyed. It was like a hobby for them, being those characters, something they enjoyed. If you look at a lot of wrestlers through time, they're some of the greats. And when they had great gimmicks or were on great tag teams, it's when they put them in something they really enjoy. But in the sad news, in my opinion, with that is that Hollywood Blondes one of the best tag teams ever, and it's something that WCW didn't know how to control or handle, and they ruined it.
Um, I think back then, obviously, most of wrestling was focused on the bigger guys. You know what I'm saying? And they kind of treated tag team divisions, and to maybe even more of extent, mid card divisions, kind of like how we treat cruiserweight divisions now. You know what I mean? I think it was just a sign of the times because they were super successful as Hollywood Blondes. Maybe WCW dropped the ball on them, but WCW dropped the ball on a whole lot of shit back in the day. I thought they had great success, and I thought that character that he portrayed as Hollywood Blondes was the catalyst to what we would come to know as the loose cannon, because that's when he really started acting like that. When he turned heel, and him and Steve Austin were the Hollywood Blondes, coming out doing the camera roll and all that shit. That's when he started getting that heel presence. And from then on, it was almost like I couldn't even picture Brian as a face anymore because he was so good at being a heel. And obviously, that shit went so far beyond where anybody thought it was going to go. I mean, let me fast
Way
forward
further.
real quick. That shit fucking with Eric Bischoff, where he played Eric Bischoff. He was like, yo, act like you fired me, but you have to make it look real. Really release me. And he used that shit as leverage and went somewhere else, which is, yeah, that dude was fucking crazy, man.
The words loose cannon, man. He earned that nickname because he was just shooting. I remember I loved how Steve Austin said in the episode, like, I want to call him up and ask him if he's shooting or working, but I actually don't really want to know. That was probably like one of the best things I heard him say. He's like, his character was just so good with what he was doing. He's throwing everything under the bus, but maybe they gave him the props to do that, or maybe he's just doing it on his own. He was just doing it on his own, and they just didn't realize that. I don't know. I think it was something during like the Randy Savage thing. They said his character was actually bleeding into his real life. So I think that's kind of like one of the things they hit there.
What do they always say? I think Jim Ross said it best. You get the best wrestlers when guys find a way to merge themselves into their character, right? It's the best wrestlers. It's you being yourself with the volume turned all the way up. So I think for almost, I mean, look at Ultimate Warrior. He was that guy. I think you have to become that dude to be that successful. Look at The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin. These guys became the characters, and the characters became them. It became one and the same. Like right now, we look at Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Mm-hmm.
It's one guy. We're not looking at Steve Austin, or I think his real name is Steve Williams. We're not looking at Steve Williams and then Stone Cold Steve Austin as two separate people. No, man, we're looking at he found a way to merge his character with himself and make it great. And I think that's what Brian Pillman was doing with the loose cannon.
Boy, did a good damn job of it.
Well, it's like you said
Otherwise,
earlier. I think we're at the point now. I think you brought it up. He pulled the curtain back a little bit against Kevin Sullivan.
he was the Deadpool of wrestling, as far as I'm concerned.
That's a good analogy right there.
Like, always breaking that wall. Like, hey, look, and just calling out like the higher ups. The only thing like he didn't do was like reach into the camera and like give somebody a kiss or something like Deadpool probably would.
I mean, he's probably did something real similar to that. I mean, the dude
I wouldn't doubt it.
Fucking crazy. I mean, he no sold the DDT, got up, gave Kevin Sullivan the finger, and rolled out of the ring like, fuck, this shit is fake. I was like, yo, that's fucking crazy. Yo.
Well, how about hiding behind
who does that on
Mom
TV?
and the Baby?
Oh,
from
yeah,
the franchise.
Yeah. That's wild. I mean, he was a wild cat.
He's like, what are you gonna do? You gonna punch a baby?
See, you guys think he's crazy and everything. I don't think he is. I think he's smart at that point. Here's what I think. Okay,
Every
so at
crazy
that point,
person, hold on. Every insane motherfucker is some kind of genius. Let's keep it 100. Go ahead.
Okay, but at that point in WCW, a lot of stuff was happening. They were going through a, evolution, changing for him. That was right before the NWO started during that time. There was stuff happening. Yes, wasn't it? No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
Well, the
That was
NWO
before the
wasn't
Dead
like
era.
as prominent.
That was right before the Dead era.
Well, there wasn't much happening for him at that point in WCW. It's a big thing. He saw that there wasn't much happening. So what? Not going to do much for me? I'm going to find a way to make something happen with me where I do stand out, where I do get other companies interested in me. And the smartest thing he did was go to another company. A lot of back then there were some indies, but they weren't as prominent as where he went when he went to ECW. He went there and he kept playing that character. He never stopped playing that character since the Hollywood Blondes. He
He
kept
never
playing a
wrestled a
tradesperson.
match in ECW though,
But
right?
he got that content basically of being the loose cannon, where WWE's like, we want him. He is excellent for what we're trying to do.
I still got that fuck Brian Pillman T-shirt from ECW from back in the day that they couldn't even advertise on TV. They only sold it at shows. I should have worn it tonight. I'm still the same fucking size as I was back then, so could have put that joint on. But another thing, I mean, he was a great wrestler, and he had to change his style though because of injuries. So he went from more of a flying style, like Flying Brian, and that kind of worked out for him. To go from an aerial style to more of a wrestling style because he was a heel anyway. He wasn't going to be doing all the flying moves to get all the pops. He was working as a heel most of the time. He was brawling and working kind of dirty. So I think that even though he was injured and couldn't do what he couldn't do a lot of stuff that he did beforehand. It helped his character also just to be a brawler, or and even do some good mat wrestling. And he sold, like I said, he sold like a motherfucker. Them injuries, man, they definitely caught up with him. And like again, we can get to the car accident. And I always say it, man. And I've been in some horrific car accidents. When you get behind the wheel of a car, you're operating an instrument of death. Like you're literally, it's like having a gun in your hand, and you're just shooting it off. You got to make sure you miss people. It's just like that with a car. It's an instrument of death at any time. That thing could fuck you up or fuck up people around you or even kill you. So I'm not sure, and I did watch it, but I'm not sure if I caught why he flipped the Hummer. I know they said he fell asleep. I don't know if that was from
It was a motorcycle.
painkillers.
It was a motorcycle.
No, he flipped a Hummer.
I
It
thought
was
it
a
was a
Hummer.
motorcycle.
Oh no,
No,
because like
it was a Hummer.
the
It was a
injuries he
Hummer.
already had, he wasn't able to control. Like he was losing more and more control of vehicles, and he
Well, he fell asleep. I think his wife said he fell asleep
well yeah,
because he was
heavily
on
medicated at the
painkillers.
time. Yeah,
He was on painkillers, and I think by his own admission, actually later on, maybe in the second part, I think he said he was doing 70 miles an hour, you know, trying to get home. He went and got his pain prescription. This is what he said. He said he went and got his pain prescription, and he took it on the way home, and it kicked in faster than he thought it would, and he flipped his Hummer. He's lucky he didn't hurt anybody other than himself, but he was really fucked up on that. And they said he almost lost a foot. Now, my question is, had they did amputate the foot and he got a prosthetic, could he have carried on wrestling like Kerry Von Erich did? Because I think even not having a prosthetic and not having amputated stopped him from really performing after that because he really didn't wrestle after that accident.
yeah, he was doing more promos, but he still got they pointed out that he still got his job because they were hoping that it would have fixed itself up a little bit. But they also said that's where like it just wasn't the same for him anymore. He like hooking himself up to an IV and then going out to just do some commentary or a promo and then coming back to the IV. Like it just got in his head, He's doing his best, but
He had to be in massive pain all the time.
massive pain all the time. And like I forget how like serious like the whole ankle thing was, but I know it wasn't helping him either. And
Wait, how serious the whole what was?
remember the ankle injury he had?
Oh, yeah.
When he was walking around with the cane in the first place.
Well, that was after the accident.
Yeah, that's what I said. That was after the
I'm
accident.
saying
But
that shit
they used
fucked
that
his
right
ass
on the
up.
TV, and that's when Steve Austin got him. Like, sorry, I
Mm.
jumped ahead to that. But that's when he was like breaking
Speaking
the
of
ankle with the foot.
promos, was that not probably one of the greatest? And we should do a top 5 on this one day, because between that and Razor Ramon coming through the crowd on Nitro, the Brian Pillman on the couch with the fucking Glock of whatever that was, Stone
Oh
Cold
yeah,
kicking in
the
the
home
door.
invasion. The home
He pulls
invasion
the
was
gun on
bad.
him, and the TV cut off. And that shit made the papers the next day. It made national news. USA Channel was like, yo, was that shit real? Man, yo, I long for the days where we didn't know if the shit was real or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing that I hate about technology and the internet and us being smart fans and all that stuff, man, because Brian Pillman, he used to play the shit out of us, bro. We didn't know what the fuck was real and what was fake. Going back to the Kevin Sullivan thing, we're like, oh, that was real. He said, fuck this, I'm out. You know what I mean? Like, but he had to make it real for us to believe it. And they made that shit look totally real. Him sitting on the couch, broken ankle, fucking big ass gun, Stone Cold kicking in the back door. Yo, that shit was great. I remember that shit. I remember watching that live.
I mean, it's gonna be one of the best promos we're ever gonna see. Is that one right there? That that really set the pace for how quick WWE is. Like, wait, we can move, we can start going. Like, look, if you got the money, you can do what you want on TV. He had a gun. You saw they didn't hide that gun. They didn't make no squiggly lines around it or anything like that. They had that gun right there, home invasion. And during that time in WWE, he didn't do too much in the beginning of his career, but he did enough where we were like, yo, he's here. Pillman's here. People on the internet that were marks back then were excited. It's just sad that, the injuries that happened didn't help. I feel like it's sad to say, but I feel like some doctors could have maybe done a better surgery to help his pain out. But I think at that time, I'm sorry if I skip ahead a little bit, the locker room in WWE was not the best locker room for pain management, if you know what I mean.
Yo, can we all agree that we'll never see anyone pull out a handgun on someone else on any type of wrestling program on TV ever again?
Yeah,
No,
never again.
we'll never see that
Never
ever.
again.
No,
Shit was so
absolutely
lovely.
not.
Shit was lovely.
Absolutely not.
No,
It's
but
like a
Can we talk about
movie.
the injury though? I do like the fact that all the news they were creating, like the rumors about him coming back as a Shawn Michaels clone. That
what?
that
How
part
the
of the
fuck did
episode
you hear
happened
that, yo?
on that episode.
Uh,
And they were talking about
I know, but I'd
his
never
face
heard that,
reconstruction and his steel plates, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna come back looking like an evil Shawn Michaels. I'm gonna come into the ring as an evil Shawn Michaels."
It was during the time he was in ECW, like right when he left ECW, about to come to WWF, WWE, whatever you want to call it back then. It was right around that time there were rumors. What's how Brian Pillman going to come in? That was one of the big rumors. He was going to be the evil Shawn Michaels.
that shit
being
probably would have
evil.
worked too.
Oh my God, this matches would have been amazing.
But I mean, he couldn't go.
No.
I mean, yo, do you guys know if James Andrews was around back then? Dr. James Andrews? He's the famous dude. He fixed a lot of guys.
I don't know, but I think
Kobe
he came
Bryant
a
to John
little.
Cena.
I think he came in the early 2000s WWE. I think he was doing more sports athletes, but I could be wrong.
I think he was doing Attitude. I think he came in around the Attitude Era. I'm not sure, but I know he's the most prominent guy. I'm just wondering if he was around back then, because he probably could have helped Brian.
Absolutely.
But again, I mean, and it's a shame there's been so many tragic wrestler deaths, especially wrestlers under 60. Like, if you look at the death rate to wrestlers under 60, it defeats any other demographic. Football players, other athletes, boxers. Nobody dies at the clip that wrestlers do. And it's from all these different reasons. It's not like with boxers, they get punchy or they get what the Muhammad Ali have, Parkinson's, and stuff like that. They get dementia and stuff like that from getting punched in the head so much. And that's pretty normal. Or like football players with CTE. That's common. It's a common theme. With wrestlers, we had everything from suicides We got guys getting murdered. We got guys overdosing, heart attacks, all types of shit. And unfortunately, as great as he was, he's another statistic of another wrestler who died before 60.
Yeah, the thing about it more so is like that locker room. Like I said earlier, that locker room is a big trouble for pills and drugs. I mean, just look at their stable. Okay, now Jim Neidhart died. Like I think it was last year. Okay, fine. But then you got the British Bulldog, Owen Hart, Bret Hart, the only one left alive. Jim the Anvil, and Brian Pillman, where they're all like a bunch of those dudes are dead out of drug overdoses and stuff. So then you have Test. You had Test in the locker room, died from suicide. There was a lot of guys in that locker room back in the day. Like we love the Attitude Era. We like all that stuff. We like the Canadian stuff that happened. I was a big fan of their storylines, but the stuff that happened with drugs in that locker room was not good.
I mean, I think that was a sign of the times. I mean, I think that era and every era before that, in wrestling and in sports in general, those locker rooms and behind the scenes was drug riddled. A lot of it was painkillers. Some of it was party drugs. And I just think that was it was commonplace for them back then. I mean, how many stories have we heard just about Andre the Giant drinking like 80 beers in one sitting or something like that? That shit ain't healthy. You know what I mean? Michael Jordan on The Last Dance said he walked into a Bulls locker room as a rookie and there was cocaine in the locker room. So that's baffling for today's standards. For yesterday's standards, it seems kind of commonplace. Especially we're talking about professional wrestling. These guys were nuts. They were doing all types of shit. And it's a shame that we lost some really talented guys really early, whether it was the Eddie Guerreros or the Brian Pillmans, even like guys like Lance Cade, and you mentioned Test, Mike Awesome. I mean, how many guys? Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert from back in the day. He was one of the first guys that I heard of, like dying real early like that when I was young. But again, I think Pillman could have been a world champion. He definitely was the main eventer. He was making himself a main eventer. You know what I mean? He had some awkward shit, kind of like it. I mean, we've seen guys like Bray Wyatt, kind of be that way. Guys like even like Randy Orton. They've all borrowed from Brian Pillman in some kind of way. Brian's loose cannon character paved the way for a lot of shit. I mean, CM Punk, the way he conducts himself, pipe bombs and whatnot. Just at any point in time where they blurred the lines of reality. And I said it once, said 1,000 times. The best storylines in wrestling have a semblance of realism. And when you blur those lines of reality, that's when you get the best shit.
You kind of jumped ahead of me right there because I was totally going to steal CM Punk as a reference for this episode. So good work getting to that first. Nobody could drive the pop bomb, the original pipe bombs, like Brian Pillman could. I was saving that for like the pipe bomb of my whole commentary. But absolutely, man. Like, where would we be without that willingness to, say fuck it? Like there has to be a wrestler who say fuck it. Like they don't like me who I am. I'm gonna make something y'all never seen. I'm gonna blow you all away, and I'm gonna change your mind about me. And that's what Brian Pillman set out to do. That's what he did. Life caught up with him on some heavy shit. Everybody kind of goes through like that kind of thing. Like you said, back then the business was a little different. There were no like real standards. It was, I think they even said Ric Flair would want to tear the house down and then tear the house down at the fucking bar. So somehow he's still alive and kicking because he did everything a little bit smarter. Must have. But that's
I think Rick just has the tolerance of a Greek god. That's all. You know what I mean? I think people are just designed to take so much fucking punishment. They can just abuse their bodies and drink and drink and drink and do all these drugs. But then the next guy will try to shit one time and drop dead, like Len Bias. You know what I'm saying? I mean, look at Sean Kemp smoking crack playing basketball. Len Bias does cocaine one time and drops dead. So it's just Ric Flair was just built like that.
Drugs are bad, but I think if you add on stress to it, which you think about it, Brian Pillman, he's putting stress to his body. He's wrestling. He was wrestling when he was probably injured and shouldn't have wrestled. He could have still been a guy on the mic. If he was still alive today, I could see him being on the mic for people like Bray Wyatt. But
his baby mom was a whore too.
Because he had 5 kids, you know what I mean? He had that woman who I watched Dark Side of the Ring and I was like, well, she doesn't seem too nice. Plus, she did an interview on WWE. I'm sorry, but I've never seen anyone except for that woman be on WWE when their husband died. They kind of leave that alone. Like, hey, it's a family. We're going to be respectful. She was like, oh, I'll be on TV. How much money you paying? So looking at all that, like, yeah, Brian Pillman, he did die of heart attack and everything. But where did that come from? Did it come from the drugs and the stress and working? Being on the road 352 days a year at that time.
Probably mostly the drugs, man. I mean,
look at how many. There's a lot of stress.
Look at how many wrestlers have died from heart attacks once they slow down a little bit. Kurt Hennig, Rick Rude, Eddie Guerrero. Once they slow down a little bit, because their heart is so used to going at full speed for so long, and it seems like as soon as those guys slow down, their hearts went in a shock, killed them. I think the same thing happened to Pillman. I think all them guys are under stress.
His stress was like real though. They went over how many multiple baby mamas he had, and I hate saying it that way, but how many relationships he had with women, how many kids he had outside his marriage, but he was still wanting to be a good father to all of them.
Yeah,
they went through all of that, but we all know women can make you a little bit crazy. But that's all out of love, especially your kids. You go out of your way for your kids, and the more you know this yourself, man. You got a son.
But, shouts out to all the women that shut the fuck up and don't get on our nerves, man. We love you.
Oh boy. You're trying to kill our female fan base already, bro. We got to edit that part.
Female fan base? We got to have a fan base first to have a female fan base. That's all right. As soon as they see me, I'm going to have a female fan base, so it's going to be all good. So, as soon as we go video, it's going to be the dark show. So, no, but I think Brian Pillman, again, gone too soon. One of the best vignettes, promos, scenes I've ever seen. You'll never see a promo like that. You know how they recycle shit all the time. You'll never see that shit recycled ever again. The Stone Cold Brian Pillman episode with his wife and the fucking gun. You just won't see it. That's just a once in a lifetime thing. And I hope Peacock, they're probably gonna take that off. They've been taking everything off. But hopefully that's still out there. And if you haven't seen it, I would advise you to go take a look at that. I also advise you to watch this episode because it's like Chimpy said, it's one of the best Dark Side of the Ring episodes. I thought the Jimmy Snuka one was the craziest. And obviously the Chris Benoit one was insane. I don't even like saying his name here, but those some great episodes. There's some flops, like I thought the Brawl for All was not that great, but the Brawl for All was fucking stupid while it was going on anyway. So even though it was entertaining to see people get knocked the fuck out who never been punched in the face before. So that was cool. But other than that, I think this is definitely ranks up there top 3 Dark Side of the Ring episodes, right?
For right now. No, there's
we've had 20 something so far.
I'm very anxious to see the Ultimate Warrior episode when it comes out later this year. So,
but haven't we seen that story already so many fucking times though?
Yeah. See, I just want to see if they can provide us any new sort of now it's coming a little bit.
Like it's like it's still
Dark
waiting
Side
for.
Of the Ring has a different edge than the regular documentaries that you see. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I feel like, especially with the Ultimate Warrior, I feel like we're just waiting for a new Tupac song to be recycled again, because we've seen this story over and over again. We've seen the bad Ultimate Warrior documentary, then he had the good Ultimate Warrior documentary, then he has his own documentary. You can go to YouTube and watch hours and hours and hours and hours on this fucker. And again, like, what are they going to tell us differently that we don't already know? Obviously, we don't know because we haven't seen the episode yet, but it's not like Pillman, where everything was still, there was still some mystery behind what he was doing because he wasn't talked about or celebrated as much as Warrior. I'm not really looking forward to Ultimate Warrior one, but you're a fucking mark, so I understand why you're
I'm
so
also looking
into it.
forward to looking at something wrestling that doesn't make Vince McMahon money.
I hear that. Isn't that why we watch New Japan?
But
That's why I've been
Isn't that
sitting
why
there
we-
watching Impact and Ring of Honor just because it's been
and
free
AEW,
and
you
on
know, that's the
TV.
reason why I watch that. You know,
I think
The reason why I
AEW
watch
makes
it.
Vince money
All I gotta have is
indirectly.
internet, not a peacock, not a jack.
I think Vince makes money from AEW indirectly because competition is always good.
Well,
He's
then you could
making
say
money. He's making money from having competition, and he still has his guys over there. John Moxley and Chris Jericho. Yes, they're in AEW, but they some WWE guys the most casual fans. So I don't want to stray. But we can cap off this Brian Pillman episode again. It's one of my top 3 episodes, along with Snuka and Chris Benoit. But it only makes you miss these guys more. Like every time I see something like this, I think of Eddie, and I think of how great he was, and how great he was going to be. And when you think about Pillman, you think about the guys he could have wrestled. Like a WrestleMania match for Stone Cold Steve Austin seemed like it was destiny. It's a shame that his injuries were what they were. It's a shame that he got in a car accident. He had drugs in his life. He had foul women in his life. But this man made the most of it. This man lived. Sometimes it's the quality of life more so than the quantity. I think Brian Pillman is a great example of him living a quality of life, even though it didn't last very long. So I get his show an A. This episode is definitely an A for me. Just a strong, solid, like a 94. That's all I got for that.
I got nothing against that. I'll definitely give it a day.
It was well done too.
It was very well done, from start to finish, both parts. And I was even like, why am I coming back for another episode about the same stuff? But there was a lot of stuff that they definitely covered in that second episode that was not going to be said in the first episode, because it they cut it off at the car accident, obviously, and that was a whole story of its own, like the beginning of the end, where the first episode they showed you the big rise to stardom. It was very well done as far as that goes. Hey, for EW, like his little son, a Varsity Blonde instead of Hollywood. Take it, Joe.
well, I think this was actually an A+. I think it was one of the best episodes. This is probably the best episode they've had because, in my opinion, I like when shows surprise me, and I didn't know a lot about the contracts and him getting fired from WCW. I didn't know about that stuff back then. I was way younger, and I didn't know a lot. Now I did know that he was playing a character. It wasn't something about that, but I think the character he plays is one of the best. I don't know if Fine Brian is in the Hall of Fame, but if he's not, they need to put him in there for a lot of reasons. First of all, we're all
I don't
talking.
think he is.
Even if there wasn't,
I don't think he is. I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame.
Even if he he needs to be in there for a lot of reasons. Even if there wasn't a Dark Side of the Ring episode, that's somebody that anybody always talks about from his beginning of his career to the middle, even to the end. That night of the pay-per-view when he didn't show up because everything because it's been passing. That pay-per-view, there was an angle that he had. I'm pretty sure he had a title match that night. So he was still doing things wrestling. He wasn't. When some wrestlers get older, they kind of slow down. They start being managers, this and that. Brian Pillman wasn't slowing down. He was still doing promos. Even when he was injured, he was sitting on his couch at
They
his
had him on
home injured,
commentary, though, too. They had him on commentary a little bit.
So he should be Hall of Famer. And I gave this episode an A+. It was probably both parts of it were great. There was a lot of surprises in it, and I really enjoyed a lot of it. I remembered a lot of Fine Brian. I followed his career from WCW into WWF So I really enjoyed it a lot.
The same reasons why you enjoyed this one is why I'll say the Snooker episode for me was the best ones, because there was a lot of different shit that I never know about Jimmy Snooker. Like, I was a kid when Jimmy Snooker was wrestling, so I just thought that he was just a great guy. You know, he was just this big, giant, super face, this hero, can do no wrong, but he was the opposite in real life. He was a piece of shit. So, it was good to see that side of it as an adult. And I think with Brian, it's almost the opposite, because it's like you find out what type of a good person he really was and how smart he really was outside of his crazy antics and all the shit you heard about the drugs and the car accidents and shit. It's kind of like give some more insight to the man that he was. So I appreciated the episode for that. But no doubt. So I think we all can agree season 3, episode 1 of Dark Side of the Ring is a definite success. And I'm looking forward to the next one. We're not going to be covering every Dark Side of the Ring, but we will cover the important ones. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, we'll probably touch on that Ultimate Warrior one. I don't know which one is next. I think you said Nick Gage is next. Yeah, I don't give a fuck about that one. But we'll talk about them as they come along, and we'll get it in. So what's next, Chimby? What we got? It's a special show.
It is a special show. The reason it's a special show is we're doing some fantasy booking. That's what we're going to do.
Yo, bro, explain to the people what exactly this fantasy booking shit is.
All right. So me as content guru, I made a situation and scenario for someone to make an event. And they're not going to tell, they didn't tell us how they made the event, who's in the matches or anything like that. So we're all going to hear them make the event. We're going to talk about it, debate about it, and do that. And should I tell what event we did? You want to do that?
No, you can run it down.
All right. So my friend over here, the Dark Show, got the first scenario, and the scenario is the WrestleMania 4 WWF Championship Tournament. But instead of using WWF wrestlers, we used NWA, I guess WCW 1980s wrestlers instead.
I actually used the wrestlers because this tournament, WrestleMania 4 Championship Tournament, happened in 1988.
Oh, perfect.
So I made sure I had the roster from 1988 from NWA/WCW, so I didn't fuck it up. And I'm glad I did that, because even though Steamboat was in this tournament, I could have put Steamboat still in the tournament, because that motherfucker was back and forth all through the 80s and early 90s. So shouts out to him for doing it the right way. Shouts out to Rick Rude, too, who's also in the original tournament, for showing up both on Monday Night Raw and Nitro on the same fucking night. You'll never see that again. So let's get into it, man. Fantasy booking, WrestleMania 4, the championship tournament, replacing all the wrestlers with WCW and NWA wrestlers from not just that time, but from that year. And I say that because my original winner, I already had him picked. But once I looked at the roster in NWA for that year, he wasn't there. And I was like, damn, what the fuck? So I had to Wikipedia my man, Magnum TA, and realized that he was forced into retirement in 1986. WrestleMania 4 happened in 1988. But I'm letting y'all know my original winner of this tournament was Magnum TA, because he was on his way at that time to becoming world champion. He was feuding with Tully Blanchard and Ivan Koloff for the U.S. title, but he was on his way going to the top. And unfortunately, he got in a car accident in 1986 that forced him to retirement. He's still alive to this day. And shouts out to Magnum TA. But again, I'll tell y'all, man, about them Porsches. You know I'm a car guy. Everybody from James Dean, Paul Walker, Bobby Phills, Jerome Brown, Magnum TA, Ryan Dunn, they all got hit up in them Porsches. Don't buy a Porsche when you get your money. All right, let's get into it. WrestleMania
Good.
4.
Wait, good. I want to say one thing. Good homework right there. Good homework about Max. Yeah, good job.
I work hard on this shit, man. I take wrestling seriously because it's not fake to us. Shameless plug. All right, let's get into it. So let me pull up my original card. So let's do a quick recap. The original card, as you guys remember, this was the bleed over from WrestleMania 3. So Hogan and Andre because of the results of WrestleMania 3 and the arguments made by Ted DiBiase, Bobby Heenan, and Andre the Giant, led to Jack Tunney vacating that title all the way until WrestleMania 4, where there was going to be a tournament. Now, because Hogan and Andre were the catalyst of all this, they got a first round bye. So Hogan got his first round bye and Andre got his first round bye. And our next round of matches was Jim Duggan versus Ted DiBiase, Don Morocco versus Dino Bravo. Rest in peace to both them brothers. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was Greg the Hammer Valentine, which is the first match I've ever seen in my life at Starrcade 83, which was cool when I saw that they wrestled each other here. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool that I'm doing this fantasy booking and a rematch of the first match I ever seen in my life was in this particular tournament. Then we have my top 5 that are alive is Randy Savage versus the Natural Butch Reed. Rest in peace to both those guys. Bam Bam Bigelow versus One Man Gang was the next match. Rest in peace to both of those guys. And Jake Roberts versus Rick Rude, which was a historical rivalry. I'm not sure if it was before, it was around that time and then after that time. Them guys got it on. So here are my replacements for the first round. My Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant first round buys are Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes. Those guys feuded for the titles back and forth. Dusty actually beat Ric Flair for that title twice. Rick got it back both times. People think Dusty's 3 title reigns were all Ric Flair. Nope, he actually beat Harley Race for the other one. My second match of that night, well, my first match of the night, because Rick and Dusty got the bye, I had Lex Luger versus Hands of Stone, Jimmy Garvin. Then I had Nikita Koloff versus Ivan Koloff. Little rivalry from there, because you know how you gotta. This is wrestling. You gotta put some rivalries in a tournament. You feel me? They got Barry Windham versus Arn Anderson. Then I have
match.
Then I have Sting versus Tully Blanchard. I have Dr. Death Steve Williams versus Rick Steiner. Then the final match of the first round is Ron Simmons versus the Warlord. Now, big shouts to the guys that didn't make the list. Guys like Ricky Morton, guys like Beautiful Bobby, guys like Scott Steiner, Road Warrior Hawk, Road Warrior Animal. I went through the whole roster. Manny Fernandez. Peace to all y'all. I just didn't think y'all fit the narrative that I was trying to do here. So obviously, Rick and Dusty have to fight each other in the beginning of the second round. So they got the first round bye. So let's get into it. Let's get into this first round. First match was Lex Luger versus Jimmy Garvin. I had Lex Luger beating Jimmy Garvin via torture rack submission.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, but here's my question though. You have all these great wrestlers on here. You have a huge roster, and you picked gorgeous Jimmy Garvin. What can I ask the reason why, if you don't mind me asking that?
I'm sorry. I meant Hands of Stone, Ronnie Garvin.
Oh, Ronnie Garvin. Okay, that makes sense because at that point,
not Jimmy Garvin. I believe I said Ronnie Garvin the first time. The second time I did say Jimmy Garvin. But Hands of Stone, Ronnie
Garvin, who was the champion at that point,
who beat Ric Flair by a top rope sunset flip. I was
won the belt. Yes, won the championship. Okay,
he was champion for like 30 days. Something like that.
I'm sorry, I just got confused for a minute. So Lex Luger beat him.
Lex Luger
I'm fine with that. It makes sense.
All right. Then we had Nikita Koloff versus Ivan Koloff. Nikita versus Ivan. Reggie Muchazov. Which is a rivalry, obviously, that stemmed from Nikita breaking away and turning face on Ivan Koloff and Crusher Khrushchev. Then I have Nikita with the Russian sickle. After Ivan Koloff tries to use the chain, he misses. Nikita hits him with the sickle. Uno, dos, tres. Then I have Barry Windham versus Arn Anderson. I had to start because I had this probably as one of the best matches of the night.
I think that's the match of the night. That match right there.
Yeah, I have these guys getting it the fuck on. I have Barry Windham going over on Arn Anderson.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, Barry was the young lion, bro. He was like Chris Jericho, young lion back then, bro. He was the man. Plus, you got to have some little, you throw little upsets here and there, little monkey wrenches.
It's Arn Anderson. He doesn't have to
Yeah.
go far in the second round, but he can win the first round. It's Arn Anderson.
So who booked this? Ahmad or Chimbi?
You're right. Go
Oh,
ahead. Go ahead. My bad. Go ahead. Sorry, I'm gonna debate though. Go ahead.
I don't give a fuck what you debate. All right. So our next match was Sting versus Tully Blanchard. Probably another great match. Tully goes for the slingshot suplex. He gets it up and over. Sting reverses the suplex, comes up behind him, hits him with a reverse DDT that he won't use for another 10 years, but he's using it in this, and it puts him in a scorpion for the submission win. Scorpion Deathlock, that is. Then I had Dr. Death, Steve Williams versus Rick Steiner. I have Dr. Death going over with a power slam. Simple as that. I believe he called that the Oklahoma Stampede. Put him down. Final match of the first round was Ron Simmons versus the Warlord. I thought it made a lot of sense to keep the finish on this one. So I kept the finish. The finish of the last match, Jake Roberts versus Rick Rude, was a 15-minute draw. I have these guys battling and killing each other basically for the whole 15 minutes, and it goes to a draw. So, which means Dr. Death gets a bye in the second round, just like the one-man gang did in the original tournament. So, our second round takes us here to Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes, the match that people have been waiting for all night. This is why they sold the tickets. They're figuring one of these guys are going to walk out of here as the champion. As we know, the original match was Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant, which ended in a double disqualification after all types of fuckery happened in that match. Go back and watch it. And just like any Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes feud, the classic feud, it's a top 5 feud. Again, another show. There's a whole lot of fuckery. Arn and Tully both lost in the first round. So they was like, fuck it, we're going to make sure our boy wins. So they come with the interference. Nikita Koloff comes down to help Dusty, and it's a whole schmaz and all this fuckery. Referee Danny Davis loses control, doesn't count the pin for Dusty, calls a double disqualification. Nobody wins, which means that the winner of Lex Luger versus Nikita Koloff, which is a rematch from Starrcade 88, I believe. No. Lex Luger beat Nikita Koloff for the U.S. title. Then in Starrcade 88, Dusty Rhodes beat Lex Luger for it in a steel cage match. But this is also a classic rivalry, Lex Luger versus Nikita, because they did rival each other for the U.S. title. That means the winner of this match gets a bye, the same bye that Ted DiBiase received after beating Don Morocco, after Morocco beat Dino Bravo. So this Lex Luger versus Nikita Koloff match is parallel to Ted DiBiase and Don Morocco. I have Lex Luger going over Nikita Koloff again. He just couldn't beat that guy. Lex Luger was the man. He was the total package back then. He was a young guy. He was getting pushed to the moon. I don't know if they really knew what to do with him because they kind of had him turn face, heel. They made him a horseman. Horseman fucked him up. In the feud with Ric Flair, they thought they were going to push him to the top, but Rick refused to fucking put him over because he thought Sting deserved the shot. But yes, I have Lex Luger cheating against Nikita Koloff to beat him because Nikita ain't submitting to the torture rack. So he hits him with a chair, hits him with another chair, pins him. Chair shots to the head used to mean something. Next match in the second round, Barry Windham versus Sting. Of course, they tear it down. It's a surfer Sting. So this high flying, a lot of big spots in the match, but a real clean match because these guys are both faces. They respected each other. Of course, there was a handshake before the match and whatnot. Sting goes over. Sting goes over with a flying crossbody off the top rope because Barry Windham's a face and he doesn't tap. And of course, Dr. Death Steve Williams received the bye because Ron Simmons and the Warlord wrestled to a time limit draw. Just like when One Man Gang defeated Bam Bam Bigelow to advance, and he was going to fight the winner of Jake Roberts and Rick Rude, but they wrestled to a time limit draw. So after Sting's arduous and grueling match versus a game, Barry Windham, he has to wrestle Dr. Death, who's fresh as I don't know what. That takes us to the next round. Obviously, Rick and Dusty had a double disqualification. Lex Luger beat Nikita Koloff. Lex Luger gets a bye. Straight to the finals. Just like Ted DiBiase did. He beats Don Morocco. He was supposed to fight the winner of Andre versus Hawk, which I don't know how that would have worked if Andre would have won, but he didn't. So Ted got a bye straight to the finals. So he's fresh. So fresh and so clean, just like Lex Luger. Lex Luger is fresh. Now, other semifinal match is Sting versus Dr. Death. Dr. Death is fresh. So he's beating the shit out of Sting the whole goddamn match. Sting does pull it out with a small package in the end. Just gets him. Schoolboy roll-up type shit. 1, 2, 3. Sting is beat up, though. And Lex is fresh, which leads us to the World Championship match. Lex Luger versus Sting in the finals of my NWA WrestleMania 4 tournament. And I talked about this beforehand because I picked the winner before I picked Magnum TA. And I thought about it and I was like, well, Magnum should go over. Then I looked it up and Magnum was already retired. So I had to go back to my original winner. Now, this is a classic match, classic rivalry, classic friendship. These guys were off and on friends for a long time as far as kayfabe goes. Obviously, they were good friends behind the scenes. And Sting was the fucking man, period. Lex Luger taps out, says I quit, says I submit to the Stinger after interference from the Four Horsemen trying to help Lex. After Nikita and Dusty come and clean house. Lex is distracted and all in melee. Sting, again, hits him with a reverse DDT that he won't use for another 10 years. Hits him with it. Wow. Puts him in a scorpion. Lex can't take it. The referee wakes up, asks Lex, do you want to give up? Lex says yes. Sting is our world champion. So in my wrestling booking fantasy world, Sting wins his first world title in 1988 after a WrestleMania 4 championship tournament. That is my fantasy booking. I'm going to run it back down for you. Y'all good?
Very interesting. I'm just curious, like what made Sting get this top spot?
Because, all right, so the winner of WrestleMania 4 was Randy Savage, right?
Okay.
So I had to think of who's the Randy Savage of that time. So when you think of Randy Savage of that time, he had just turned face a little while ago. They were testing other guys to see who could be a face of this company, to see who could be a top guy outside of Hulk Hogan. Macho Man was an obvious choice. And he put in work all the way up to that point, including a year before that, putting on one of the greatest WrestleMania matches we've ever seen.
Ricky.
Right? Against Ricky Steamboat.
Ricky. I got that.
And he was a great Intercontinental Champion, defending his title against everybody, put on awesome matches. Was great on the microphone. He's my top 5 greatest wrestler of all time. And so who was a parallel to that in the NWA? Who was like that hot young guy? That hot young face? It was Sting. Surfer Sting.
Yeah, Surfer Sting. Definitely. I'm glad you threw that in there because, like, we're not talking like.
Well, it's like I said, it was going to be Magnum.
Sting.
It was going to be Magnum TA because he would have been perfect for that spot had he not been retired at that point, because he was kind of like the Macho Man, face wise, of WCW, going after Ric Flair. Now it's a little bit different as far as the situations, because you had the whole Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Ted DiBiase dynamic. Remember, they had the twin referees, Dave and Earl Hebner, all that fuckery that went on. Where WCW was more cut and dry with their face and their heels just going at it. But Sting was the up-and-coming young guy. Even Ric Flair pegged him as the next champ. Ric Flair didn't want to put Lex over. He said, I want to put Sting over. So that's how I got the Sting. And judging about on how he continued after that, It's the obvious choice. Why? Y'all to have somebody else? Who? Fuck out of here.
I mean, I thought you would have had Flair. Like, you love Ric Flair. But I see what you did. You did it the right way.
You had to
You
keep
wanted
it.
to have heel versus face and do it like that.
No. I wanted to keep it as close to the original results as possible.
Okay. That makes sense.
That's why Flair and Dusty had to bye, and everybody expected either Hawk or Andre to walk out of there with the title. And neither happened, which was at the time, we were shocked that we were going to get a new world champion at that point. When Hawk and Andre had that double disqualification, that was a monkey wrench to the whole shit. We were shocked. So I wanted to keep that theme the same way I did with the Warlord and Ron Simmons, how Rick Rude and Jake Roberts wrestled to a draw. I wanted to keep the buys intact.
Okay, that makes sense. I understand. The only two things I would have changed, I would have took out Ronnie Garvin.
Why?
Put
He was
Beautiful
the
Bobby
man.
in there, or Sid. Wasn't Sid working?
He wasn't
there at
there.
the time. Who? Okay, Dan Spivey was there. Wasn't he there? No, there got to be some big guy.
Ron Garvin was the world champion.
I know, but come on, he was like a transitional. He was a transitional champion.
So what? So who was the world champion in WWE at that time outside of Hogan? Nobody.
It was different. It was different back then. It was 1988.
Motherfucker on this
the 80s.
So
but
the Superman persona.
But at least I had cats that won the title. Look, the people on my list who were going to win titles or had won titles: Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Lex Luger, Ronnie Garvin, Barry Windham, Sting, Ron Simmons. That's a lot of world champions on my list.
How many times did Ronnie Garvin win the world title?
Once.
Okay, so he's just like David Arquette, right?
No, he's not just like David Arquette.
He won the title one time. David Arquette did.
Wait. Stop. Are you going to compare Hands of Stone and Rugged Ronnie Garvin?
But I'm saying with title reigns I can, because they both have one. That's it.
No,
that's the only thing.
You can't do that because that's booking, and you can't say David Arquette was the same champion as Ronnie Garvin, even though Ronnie Garvin was transitional.
He didn't have the belt for long. Flair got it back pretty quick. But
you can say Ronnie Garvin and Jinder Mahal was the same type of champion, but you can't say David Arquette. Okay. You can't say David Arquette.
Right.
That's some bull. Right. David Arquette was akin to Vince winning the title or something.
I think
winning the women's title. That's what that was like.
Didn't Jinder Mahal have the belt longer than Ronnie Garvin?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can't compare them because he didn't have the belt longer.
No. Transitional champion means transitional champion.
Okay, right? You're right. Okay, I'll give you that.
David Arquette was a celebrity champion. That was some fucking publicity shit. Putting the belt on Ronnie Garvin had nothing to do with publicity. They were testing the guy out to see how it would rock and roll. All right? Dude couldn't speak on the microphone, and nobody's believing that you're just knocking niggas out with one fucking punch.
No,
it doesn't stop working. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of cool when they added Jimmy Garvin into it to act like his brother. I don't know if you guys remember. Ric Flair came in the hotel room thinking he was getting with Baby Doll, and it was Jimmy Garvin dressed up as Baby Doll.
Nope.
Turned around.
I do not remember this.
Turned around, scared Ric Flair, and then Ronnie Garvin hit him with the knocked him the fuck out with the shot. You don't remember that hotel room scene? That's because y'all are babies. That's why. And that's why you don't understand why I put Ronnie Garvin on this fucking list. Because you can't think of one other motherfucker. Give me one person to replace him.
Okay, the other match. There's one other match.
The roster? Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, read me the roster. Go ahead.
The NWA roster from that time?
That you didn't use, yeah, and I'll pick a guy. Go ahead.
You tripping.
Go ahead.
I'm pulling it up right the fuck now.
There had to be somebody that's, I'm sorry, but better than Ronnie Garvin. I'm sorry. Ronnie Garvin had one little feud.
There were only 34 dudes on the roster back then.
I know. It wasn't a huge roster. I knew that.
Where's my? Oh, here it is. All right. I'm not going to run down everybody. I'm going to touch on some of the main guys.
Yeah, this is pick a main guy. I'll pick a
Beautiful Bobby Eaton. We had Stanley. We have Ricky Morton. I didn't want to put too many tag team guys in this show.
Nah.
You know what I'm saying? You had Manny Fernandez. You had Kendall Windham. You had Mike Rotundo. You had Kevin Sullivan. Bro, Larry's the
I would have put Mike Rotundo in that match. Yeah.
Why? I had Dr. Death in there.
No. In the first against Ronnie Garvin was against Lex Luger. I
Lex
would have
Luger,
had that. I would have had that match instead.
Lex
That'd
Luger
be a little more.
versus Mike Rotundo. See, I wanted to keep it as NWA as possible too. You know what I mean? Mike Rotundo was a floater. He's more well known as IRS than he was Mike Rotundo, to be honest with you. But you got guys like Commando Number 2 and Ray Candy and shit like that, man. Luke Williams, like,
No.
who the fuck are these dudes, man?
The only other match I would have messed with, I would have liked to see just just for pure fun, would be Tully versus Arn. You know what I mean? Just to
Well,
see that match. But I see what you did.
but there was anticipation for that, but it didn't happen because they would have wrestled had they both won, but they both fucking lost. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why I did that is because Ricky Steamboat lost to Greg Valentine. Randy Savage beat Butch Reed. Everybody was anticipating the quarterfinal match of Randy Savage versus Ricky Steamboat, and it didn't happen. Oh. So I thought about this shit kind of deep, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? And I was trying to find a black dude since they had Butch Reed in this tournament, but good for NWA for having like no fucking black people on their goddamn roster besides Ron Simmons. So I did put Ron Simmons on there, but not because he was a black dude. But because he was a top guy, just happened to be black. But Ron Simmons was literally the only black dude on the roster at that time. So I thought that was kind of funny. I was like, damn. I had to replace Butch Reed with his doomed tag team partner, Ron Simmons. He'd be his tag team partner a little bit later down the road because he was still the natural Butch Reed. But there's another parallel for your asses. And again, Ricky Steamboat versus Greg the Hammer Valentine is my earliest memory of wrestling, Starrcade 1983. So I enjoyed the fact that I got a chance to do this one. A lot of dead guys in here. Rest in peace, including the Macho Man, who I had in top 5. And my 6th, probably be a guy like Sting. So it's good to see that type of parallel representation for me, at least. And that's how I booked it. I mean, you can't knock having Dr. Death and Rick Steiner, Tully Blanchard, Barry Windham, Ivan Koloff, Nikita Koloff, Arn Anderson, Rick, Dusty. It's a hell of a... I think my tournament would have been better than the actual tournament that happened. To be honest with you, I think my matches are better. Because One Man Gang versus Bam Bam Bigelow ain't that hot. Don Morocco versus Dino Bravo, God rest their souls. That's not a 5-star quality match. I don't think we got out of that when I watched that shit. You know what I'm saying? Jim Duggan versus Ted DiBiase, like, them matches weren't great, man. They were good. Now, Ted DiBiase versus Randy Savage in the finals is a great match. One of the great WrestleMania matches. But
everybody's got a price.
But I think I did a good job with our fantasy booking, especially for the first episode. You guys can let me know in the comments.
Do you think that match, the Macho Man Randy Savage match versus $1 Million Man, would the Lex Luger Sting match be better than that match at that time?
No, because I think both Ted DiBiase and Randy Savage were both better wrestlers than Lex Luger, and at least Randy Savage was a better wrestler than Sting. So Randy Savage is better than both those guys, and Ted DiBiase was better than at least one of them. So no. Even though Lex could wrestle, he put on good matches and he worked really good. And Sting was awesome, obviously, but I don't think that they would have put on a better match. Maybe as good as match, but not a better match as Randy and Ted DiBiase. We're talking about Hall of Fame guys, even though I think Lex Luger deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
I agree with that. You know, it should get a chance at some point.
I mean, before he dies. I mean, he's deteriorating before our eyes. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck?
The matches will still look good with a little bit of King's Cannabis.
Shouts out to Kings. Yo, if you're in Oregon, especially in Eugene, but all over the state, cop King's Cannabis from your local dispensary. They specialize in the strawberry shit, man. They got strawberry cookies, strawberry with the do-si-do, strawberry short onion cake, whatever the fuck you smoke. Ask Chimpy. Last episode, he was blitz on that shit. So, shouts out to King's Cannabis, our sponsor. But yo, I think that's it tonight, man. What y'all got for me? I think our next fantasy booking is it. We got Battle Bowl, Chimpy.
Yeah, we got
Bowl.
Yeah, I'm gonna do
WWF
Battle Bowl.
wrestlers.
Battle Bowl with Attitude
With
Era
attitude.
wrestlers.
Now that's one I would have loved to have too. Even though I enjoyed this one a lot because it was from my heyday. You know what I mean? My childhood. I believe I was 11 years old when WrestleMania 4 came out. So that means you guys were like still sucking your mama's titties. You know what I'm saying? I was done sucking my mama's titties, and I was 2 years away from sucking someone else's titties. I'll say that. But Battle Bowl was definitely an awesome pay-per-view. And again, Sting is a good segue because we all know in the original Battle Bowl, Sting won. So I'm kind of interested to see what Attitude Era wrestler is your parallel to the Surfer Sting of Battle Bowl. Right? So that's going to be fun.
Have to wait and see.
But you guys are going to have to wait and see for that one because I believe we're still a whole week away from that. But our next episode will be the preview to, and I hate fucking saying this, WrestleMania Backlash. We got some good matches. We got a good lineup. I'm glad to see Cesaro not fighting Seth Rollins and fighting Roman Reigns, strike one of irons hot, but we will get to that. We will also run down the week of wrestling. There's a lot to happen on Dynamite. We got to talk about the fallout from Blood and Guts. We got to talk about what's going on in NXT. We got to talk about what's going on in Impact. And we got to touch on the go-home shows, Raw and SmackDown. And see where we're going from there. Reggie, what you got for us, bro, before we get out of here?
Again, thanks for listening, everybody. And no matter what the Dark Show says, never be afraid to mark out.
Whatever. Chimpy?
Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe on this video. And thank you for watching another one of our episodes. We'll see you next time.
Shouts out to our fourth member, my blood, my cousin, my brother, Najee, Darkness. See you on the other side, brother. And we are out. Fucking Mark. That's the bottom line. Because the Dark Show said so.